I remember many times when I worked at Horwich, we couldn't catch a bus home at night, so we got to walk all across from Horwich Works, all across the banking to get home. And oh, it was smuggy, very smuggy.
So when did you start at Horwich?
I started at Horwich in 1944, August 44. I started in the telegraph office actually. I was 14-year-old, and when I was 16-year-old, you start your serving your apprenticeship, and started in the machine shop. But I was always going to go in the millwright shop to become a millwright, which I eventually did. And when I was 21, I could have got in the offices, either the drawing office or the plant office, but I wanted to do my national service. So I did 2-year national service in the Royal Navy as an ERA, engine room artificer, on board a destroyer. And when I came back, I started back in the millwright shop, and I gradually worked my way up the ladder.
So did National Service split an apprenticeship you were doing?
Oh no, well, I was 21 when
You'd finished your apprenticeship?
I finished my apprenticeship. Yeah. Well, I was taking examinations as well, and you could get exempt actually until you were 21.
How many people were working there then?
I would say right at the end of the war, possibly 5,000. I mean, when I got moved, went from being on the switchboard into the machine shop with ladies and whatnot, working on layers, you know, they were still there. And quite a busy place, actually.
So during the war, I mean, were there a lot of women working there on the engineering?
Oh yeah, especially in the machine shop, you know, the little lathes, capstans and whatnot. Oh yeah. I have an idea at the back of my mind there were about 7,000 there during the war. Because they had a bullet shop where they made bullets. Yeah.
Was railway locomotive production suspended during the war? Was it all war effort?
It was all war effort, yeah. Yeah, they made tanks, flails for tanks for mines, you know. Tank went out, flared and blew the mines up and whatnot, yeah. Yeah.
And that was mostly women working there then?
No, they were, the women worked on what jobs women could work on,
Yeah.
you know. I say small layers and whatnot. There weren't, I don't think there were any women working on tanks in the erecting shop. Well, it's too heavy work for that, you know.
Were those women able to keep the jobs after the war?
Some stopped on for quite a while, others left, others moved out of the workshops into the offices, you know. Well, there were a few stayed on, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how many apprentices would there have been at the time you were doing your apprenticeship?
Oh, there must have been way above 100, maybe 200. In the millwright shop apprentices we had at least, I would say, 25 to 30. Then you got to think about the pattern makers, the joiners, fitters, turners, you know, there's a few hundred apprentices, yeah, quite a few.
And in those years just after the war, the rest of the 40s and into the 50s, presumably the works was in full production.
Oh yeah. they started experimenting on introducing a diesel locomotive, and they started they actually, not the diesels that we are thinking about, but converting engines so instead of being coal fired they were diesel fired and whatnot. But that never took off.
No, that didn't take off anywhere, did it?
No, no. Well, they did experiment with it, but it wasn't a success. No. But yeah.
When did they finish? When were the last steam locomotives built at Horwich?
Oh. It's on it's on that tape that I've got.
We'll check that up after.
It's there was still, when I left in '63, they were still got steam locos, possibly maybe 65, something like that.
I mean, what was it like working in a big engineering place like that?
Well, to me it was fantastic. As I say, I was a millwright, and you'd start off your apprenticeship. I started mine, all the lads did in the millwright shop, with a little fella called Bobby Marsh. He was in his latter days, but he was brilliant for apprentices, and you go stage by stage, doing different jobs, maintenance jobs, stuff that come in late at the millwright shop, you know, deep well pumps, jiggers for the cranes on warehouses, and it was great. With some good lads, you enjoyed your work in them days. With a good foreman, Mr. Leach. He had an assistant called Cecil Crew, and Cecil looked after all what we call the outside gang, which did the whole maintenance, the whole of the works. Well, eventually you move along in different stages, and I finished up on the what they call the outside gang, and then it was you could go anywhere on the works to maintain cranes, hoists, lathes, you know, shaping machines, milling machines, the whole lot. But it was a great experience, that.
So you'd see the whole of the works then?
Oh yeah, that's why I say when I came back out of the Navy, and Mr. Leach in his wisdom put me back in the millwright shop, and I said, why have you done this? He said, because I want you. Well, he couldn't argue really, and, but eventually they put me back on the outside gang, and then as I say, I progressed, and I used to deal with every foreman, every manager when I was doing the door machinery job, and it was a great, terrific experience. You might get something that wanted repairing, that wanted a casting, and you got to program what the pattern shop were going to do, what the finery were going to do, what the brass finery were going to do. You know, you could progress it all the way along, and fantastic job.
I mean, presumably now, I mean, the jobs don't exist now because we don't have that sort of industry, but presumably now, if it did, they'd expect somebody to have an engineering degree, wouldn't they, and to have been to university to do the sort of job that you were doing.
Yeah, but you've got to have the experience, you know, you've got to have the practical experience. I mean, theory's all right, I mean, I'm qualified, but without that practical experience, you know, you just couldn't plan or progress anything really. But they would have to go outside now, when they went outside, whether you'd get what you wanted would be a different matter. So, it was good. I mean, even the chaps who worked in the erecting shop, my mates who were just, fitters, they progressed through all the engines stage by stage, and at the end of the day, when they finished their apprenticeship, it didn't matter what they had to do on an engine, they could do it, you see. But you won't get that nowadays, will you?
No, well,
it's just not there.
well, nobody'd know. There'd be very few people who know how to build an engine now.
Oh.
I mean, that one that's just been built
I was just going to remark
Darlington.
on that, yeah. Yeah, what's it cost? Millions, hasn't it?
And years and years.
Yeah.
I mean, we filmed that, in it must have been 97, 98, and it's only this last year, hasn't it?
Well, that's nice, just gone into on the rails, yeah. Yes, it's very difficult nowadays when big works like that close, and they're all closed now, aren't they?
Mm. So the skills have been lost, haven't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, when you think when I finished, when we finished production, you'd every trade there was. You're fitter, electrician, coppersmith, tinsmith, welder, burner. You got the man in the foundry, core makers. Well, there's none of that now. It's extremely difficult, I would imagine, nowadays, to get something made from square one to in production properly. Terribly difficult.
And that's what happened in a works like Horwich.
Oh yeah, yeah. You could, you get something, and if it wasn't a drawing, you got a whatever it was. Say just a simple vice. You could say, oh, that's got to be made there. They've got to make that. That piece has got to go in machine shop. The jaws, they want hand then, don't they? So you've got to get all it machine first, or whatever you want, cross-cutted on the jaws. Then you've got to be hardened up that bit. But nowadays, you wouldn't do that in one place, would you?
Yeah. And it's had its own foundry.
Oh yeah, with everything there. With the millwright shop next to us, which was the maintenance shop for the whole of the works, next to us was the joiner shop, the pattern shop. In your joiner shop, they would make ladders. They'd make the beam for the old crane, the old derrick cranes, where you got the wooden, they manufacture those. Pattern shop, they make patterns for everything. Big cylinders for locomotives. Everything that were cast iron on locomotives was, started off in the pattern shop.
And that's a skill that's just
it is,
disappeared now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, with the machine shop where you had every type of machine. Didn't matter what you wanted, you could get it machined. From there we went a bit further up to the smithy. Hooks for cranes. Anything that a blacksmith made, you could get made. Boiler shop, they made boilers from, piece of copper and steel to get a boiler end there.
Well, I mean, that's another trade that's gone almost complete, isn't it? When you think there was a Boilermakers Union.
Oh, yeah.
And it hardly exists now.
Yeah.
So I mean, how many Boilermakers would there be there?
Well, boiler shop, I would have to guess. I would think there'd be at least 150 persons in the boiler shop, not just making boilers, they'd be making frames, you know, for the locomotives, and they'd be finished off in the erecting shop.
So from where you were working, you then moved on within the works, didn't you?
I moved on, yeah, from the outside gang. I went on what they call XCLT, which was examining cranes and lifting tattle. And that was for the whole of the works, you know, the overhead crane, well, every crane on the works. The steamers and steam cranes, overhead cranes, hydraulics, whatever. And then I started deputising for the chap on the outdoor machinery, and he eventually moved to Salford on a temporary position. So the manager, it was then manager Mr. Law, he wanted me to go on that outdoor machinery job, and Mr. Leach did, Harry Leach. So I did that for about 3 years, and I just got made permanent, and I moved up to Carlisle. But on that outdoor machinery job, I dealt with every shop on the works then, every foreman, everybody in the main offices. I had to deal with the stores, the production people, people in the drawing office, because you covered everything that we covered from Birmingham for the outdoor machinery, even up to Glasgow, across the whole Bootle, all that way. That was a good job.
So was this a lot of the track repair and maintenance machinery?
No, that wasn't. That outdoor machinery then was coaling plants, ash plants, whatever there was, turntables and whatever you had. Again, jiggers on warehouses, and it was all what was in depots, all the machinery. I left in '63, went up to Carlisle, and I was the mechanical foreman up Carlisle. And that was when they was actually starting the upgrading of the North West Main Line, you know. When they were doing Euston to the station.
The rebuild there.
Yeah, I was up on that stretch, well, from Millthorpe to up to the Scottish border. Up at Horwich, and I moved back to Horwich.
And what were you doing back here?
Well, initially I was the maintenance superintendent for the whole of the works, apart from the foundry. But I was on that about possibly 18 months when I got made night manager. Well, during that period, I went in when the foundry had no maintenance engineer. I did that for a spell, you know, if their chap were off. Production superintendent, I used to do that as well when he were off.
Was it all diesels by then?
We weren't doing any locals by that time. It had changed over to a wagon works, and they used to do these Freightliner wagons, the coal wagons, you know, and they were doing coaches in the car shop. Then they did in the car shop as well. They did the whirls, which were EMUs, I think, were they? Yeah, they were. Manchester Barry, they used to do their traction stuff. And then we got a contract from the southern region, the 313s. They were a more modern one, and we started doing those. And to do the 313s properly, we built all the car shop up, raised it up, so men weren't working off ladders or anything like that, steps. We built it all up, and we progressed from stage to stage. We moved the 313 or whatever it was that we were going to do, coaches. We moved from stage 1 along. Some would get to stage 7 at the end of the shop. They were finished. Others had to go across on the traverser and come down to stage 14, and it was, we were doing a tremendous job of making a profit, but they had to shut us.
I was going to say, this was getting on for the last days, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, this was the last 2-3 years. It was, what was done was absolutely brilliant. You know, your stage 1, you'd have men working on that, and that had to move at 5 o'clock that night, so you could fetch something else in and leave. It was great, a very, very good job.
How many people were working there by that time?
Oh, we were only down to about 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's from the time you started,
Oh yeah,
it dropped from about 7,000 to 2,000.
Yeah. I'll say I ended up with 800. They did a lot of organisations where when I started back in the wagon shop itself, when I finished the maintenance job, I had a chief superintendent over me, but headquarters in the wisdom, oh, we'll reorganise this, and the chief superintendent went on another job, and I ended up, and we all that one.